Subcommittee number 2 of House General Laws to order and ask the clerk to open the roll for attendance. All right, first up, Senator Stanley. You've got Senate Bill 1114.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good afternoon. This bill, Senate Bill 1114, directs the Director of Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, to develop and operate a residential sites and structures locator database in the same way, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that we do for our industry-ready sites throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. What we're trying to do is allow a marketplace between municipalities, rural areas, counties, cities, and towns, and those developers that could develop these green spaces that we have. Well, it's a local option in the sense that the locality itself would be the one that either owns the property that would put on the portal for developers to see, or would get permission from the owner to do so. This is going to alleviate what we have is the unknown green space for development, and also the housing crisis that we have all over the Commonwealth of Virginia. A lot of our regions are growing, and we do not have housing to keep up with it. And in doing so, we don't have developers from Northern Virginia and other areas that can take on these kind of jobs. So this kind of gives a portal and an entryway for those developers to meet up with our local municipalities in rural areas and underdeveloped areas to build light industrial, light commercial, or residential areas.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr.
It's good to see you. Just hang tight. We've got some questions. Delegate Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for the Senator.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Stanley, I get the intent of the bill, but I also understand VDP does this to some degree. Why would we not want to just send a letter to VDP and request that they also do this for localities?
Mr. Chairman, I'd answer the gentlelady by saying, I think what we've seen is we had that kind of system in place with VEDP when it came to the commercial, industrial, shovel-ready sites that we had, but we weren't getting out that kind of publicity and weren't dealing directly with the developers themselves. Here, this will be a website that a developer can look on, see if there are any green spaces, developable sites, that it can then contact the locality, and then the locality itself can engage in whatever conversations with the developer in order to facilitate, ultimately, building of residential neighborhoods in regions throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Stanley, follow-up to that. So I always get concerned when we are doing additional things. So in workforce development, for instance, in the Commonwealth, oftentimes we have different pots and buckets of places we do things like that. I'm just wondering, I really feel like in something like this, we might need to streamline that. So I just think this probably would be a good partnership with VDP and maybe not DHCD, but I'll leave it up to your friends in the audience to probably help with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the gentlelady. I think ultimately what we're trying to do is connect developers with those areas and those regions that need those developers and may not have those developers located in those areas, but then also give those developers the opportunity to not just put mixed use and residential in, but then create actually a partnership that will last with the region and the developers.
Thank you, Senator. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia, and Senator Stanley explained it well. To Delegate Brewer, your question about VEDP, I think VEDP's mission is primarily commercial, industrial, and kind of non-residential uses. The intent of this is to really kind of hone in specifically on that residential mixed-use piece. And so using kind of the same model of VEDP, site selectors, to attract builders and identify opportunities where builders are traditionally not looking. South Side, Southwest, Danville is a perfect example. They've got a growing demand, a lot of land, a desire for new residential, but just not the trade-based builders that are in the area and capable of doing those projects. So just kind of putting a kind of a laser-sharp focus on that residential piece in our state housing agency. So happy to answer any questions. Would hope you support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, committee members, Brian Koza with the Virginia Housing Alliance. Kind of just piggybacking on what Mr. Clark stated, we're in support of the bill. I think it's a good idea to just kind of put some guardrails and create some infrastructure around what is really just a really informal network of knowing, developers knowing individual landlord or property owners, and this would kind of create that a process for developers to go out, find properties, and so support the bill and encourage you to do the same. Thanks.
Is there anyone in opposition to the bill? Seeing none. It's back to the committee. Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I wanted to confirm with the patron that I believe your bill has the clause on it. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's what they did to me in finance at the end, yes.
Gotcha. And so I guess for my fellow appropriators, I don't know if the preference is to strip that off now in this meeting or wait to appropriations, but
Do you have a motion, Delegate Bulova?
I would move that we go ahead and remove the clause.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned. Secondly, we remove the clause. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. That amendment is approved.
That was the most painless surgery I've ever been through. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bill's back before us. If this does report, it needs to be referred to appropriations.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Bulova.
I would move that we report as amended and re-refer to appropriations.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded to report and refer this amended bill to appropriations. All members, please cast your vote on the board. All right, Senator, your bill passes 7-0. Thank you.
That was a compliment. Thank
Yeah,
you, Mr.
appreciate that. See you. All right, next up, we do not have any of our other patrons here just yet. Senator Hanger, come on up. 1305.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was almost late, and you know why I was almost late?
Why was that?
Well, we passed a memorial resolution today for your grandmother, right?
I appreciate that, Senator.
Okay. Well, in the memorial resolution, it said that Howard Baker, who I thought I knew, was her father. And I said, that can't be right. It was her brother. And then I looked further, and it turns out Howard Baker was Howard Baker's father, too. So that was correct, right?
That's right. Howard Baker
Okay.
Sr. and then Jr. You got it.
How about that? So Senator Howard Baker, I'd met him. I hauled him around in our minivan. So anyway.
I'm sure it served him well, and glad to hear that. Thank you for your support over in the other chamber.
Right.
You want to tell us about Senate Bill 1305?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This deals with ag building exemptions, and as all of you are aware, we have pretty broad exemptions for farm building use in rural areas, and we want to preserve those. The issue evolves because we exempt them from building inspection for the most part, and that's what we want to preserve. There are instances in local government with all of the things that go on with agritourism now, where we have people frequenting our barns and places like that, and our wineries and what have you. And so we've had a group working on this issue to come to some agreement. And they've come to a narrow agreement, which would allow us to do a couple things right now, and they want to continue the study. Because there was some push from local government to do things like putting sprinklers in the barns and venues where you have wineries and et cetera. But this bill, what it does, it's a consensus with representatives of the agriculture community, including the Farm Bureau and the Agribusiness Council, the wineries, and local government at this time, that we would advance the bill that in these instances where you have these venues that are open to public, you'd have portable fire extinguishers. Not practical to put in many instances, to put in the sprinklers. So portable fire extinguishers, a simple written evacuation plan in the case of emergency, not be interpreted as something that would be a fire evacuation plan under the Uniform State Building Code, but a simple written plan like go out this door. And a sign posted in a conspicuous place that this building is exempt from the Uniform Building Code, be alert to the exits in the event of a fire or other emergencies would be posted. Then it does continue this little work group that has a lot of the stakeholders involved with it, and that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Question from Delegate Leftwich. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Hanger. So I don't have any problems with the bill. My problem would be is that we sometimes have some overzealous localities. Are you convinced that the language of this bill would not allow an overzealous locality to make any more onerous requirements than what your intent is?
Yes, that's what's intended, trying
Okay,
to lay
all right.
down what the rules of engagement are, so that they're, and obviously they will continue to lobby, I'm sure, in
Right.
some localities, up your neck of the woods perhaps around, but that would want, the sprinklers and that type of thing.
Okay. But this couldn't in any way, shape, or form be interpreted to allow them to go beyond the
No,
intent
No,
of the bill?
just
Okay.
the three items that I
Okay.
mentioned there and continuing the study.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Hager, no harm to your bill in any way. I just wanted to ask this. So I come from a very rural area, and I know that some of my farmers would be concerned that this might be the nose or the camel's tent in regards to ag outbuildings and things of that nature. Do you have any language in here? I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing. Anything that's an active farming operation that's not a farm winery or something of that nature? I just want to make sure that we're not going after any of our farmers, especially that are an active ag operation.
There's not language like that, but it does speak to those areas where you have these types of venues where the public is routinely invited onto the premises. So I think that would take care of your concern there. So that's the nature of the bill as far as what it's focused on.
Delegate Bulva.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so I just want to confirm, I guess for my own edification, so I'm a big believer in not legislating the building code, and so my understanding is that they're already exempt from the building code,
right.
And that given that they are exempt, that these are some very modest safety things that will be put in place to account for that exemption. Is that a correct understanding?
Correct. They're currently exempt, and from the standpoint of public safety, the stakeholders that represent the farming interests and the wineries and those types of agritourism of venues have come to the table and agreed to these.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, is there anyone here to speak in favor of the bill that'd like to come forward? Anyone opposed?
Mr. Chairman, Martha Moore, Virginia Farm Bureau. We appreciate the Senator's leadership. We also look forward to continuing the dialogue and believe that these are modest changes, and we support the bill.
Jim Riddell with the, Mr. Chairman, with the Virginia Cattlemen Association. I hope you enjoyed our steak sandwich today. That's why I'm dressed this way. But we support the bill, and these folks have worked for several years with this work group and some common sense regulations and right in the right place. So we hope you pass this bill, and we support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, Brad Copenhaver, representing the Virginia Agribusiness Council. We don't have an official position on this bill, but we don't have any concerns. We think this is a very common sense way to approach this problem. There have been issues and some overzealous folks, overzealous localities. We think that this addresses those issues, and we really appreciate Senator Hanger's leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Senator, final word, if you'd like.
I think that's adequately stated. It is, as was stated there, it's an exemption that we appreciate in the ag community, and we want to address concerns so we can continue to keep those exemptions.
Mr. Chairman, move to report.
There's been a motion and second to the report. Clerk, if you would open the roll for a vote. Delegate Carr, you've registered. Senator, your bill report 7-0. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate you. All right. We're going to take up Senate Bill 1340. This is Delegate Barker's bill. This is a Virginia Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. I'm going to go ahead and speak to this bill. I've spoken with the senator's staff on this, and what this would do is prohibit a landlord from performing any background credit or pre-occupancy check on an applicant unless they had a written policy published on their website or provided to the tenant. What we will do on this is I would entertain a motion to lay this on the table with a letter to the Housing Commission for them to study this over the next year.
Second.
Can you make the motion for me?
She said so moved.
All right. It's been motioned and seconded to lay this bill on the table with a letter to ask everyone to cast their vote on the board. And And that bill is laid on a table on a 7-0 vote. Thank you. And we're going to go at ease until we can find Senators Locke, Hashmi, and Morrissey. Thank you. Senator Hashmi come present Senate Bill 941. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Apologies, I was presenting in another committee, but
No worries. Go ahead.
SB 941 is with regard to security deposits for our renters and our tenants who are in good shape. This bill is pretty simple. All it would do is require that landlords return the full security deposit within an expeditious manner should the tenant be present at the final inspection of the dwelling unit and walk through if the tenant is in good standing with their rent, that the landlord shall refund the entirety of the security deposit within 10, I believe it's 10 days that 15 days that we had agreed to in terms of the amendment process. So within 15 business days, if the tenant is present at the move-out inspection, hasn't caused any damages, that they are entitled to a full refund of their monies. As we know, the security deposit is the money that belongs to the tenant. It is provided in good faith at the start of the leasing process, and many times tenants and renters need the return of the security deposit so that they can move forward. They often need that money to ensure that they have capacity to move into another rental or to ensure that they can pay moving cost and so forth. So this simply returns the money that is technically already theirs to begin with. And that's the bill.
Thank you. I don't see any questions from the committee. Is there anyone here in support of the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We want to thank Senator Hashmi for bringing this bill, and particularly thank Aaron Corman with the Realtors for working so hard with us to get us to this substitute. And as Senator Hashmi said, the bill in its current form simply gives a tenant who is in good standing the opportunity to get their security deposit back in what turns out to be a maximum of 21 calendar days instead of the current 45 calendar days. And that's really a significant difference. We know that when you move, it costs a lot of money. And so folks are putting up another security deposit, first month's rent, moving expenses, and I think most of them really need this money to come to them before that second month rent is due in their new place or whatever the next expense is. So we hope that you will move this bill forward, and thank you for the consideration.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. Sheila Herlihy with Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. Similarly, we support the bill because we think that good tenants deserve to get that security deposit back as soon as possible, and it does help create that buffer against whatever future financial challenges can come up. So thank the patron for bringing it, ask you to support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Isabel McLean with Housing Opportunities Made Equal of Virginia. And we also support this bill and thank the patron for bringing it. Thank you.
All right. Anyone opposed to the bill, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Tommy Herbert with the Virginia Apartment Management Association, as well on behalf of our sister organization, the Apartment and Office Building Association in Metropolitan Washington. We certainly appreciate the patron and appreciate the intent of the patron. We certainly all share the priority of getting our residents' security deposits back to them at the end of a tenancy in a timely manner. However, our opposition is twofold on this bill. In the first place, it is far from uncommon currently to find further damage after the move-out inspection during turn that has either been missed or it has been concealed. We think that this bill would threaten our ability to recoup our damages in those situations. And we would also say that in the context of accounting and getting payments out of large, complex financial systems, that we would need more time than the mandated period in this bill to reliably be able to get that payment back to the resident. And so we must ask, unfortunately, for you to please oppose this bill. Thank you very much.
Delegate Robinson, you had a question. Was that for a witness or the patron?
I have a motion.
Okay, it's a motion.
At the appropriate time, sir.
We'll give the senator a final word. Senator.
Well, thank you. I think you've heard the extent of the bill. It is a simple bill. It is simply expediting the process for security deposits to be returned to tenants who are in good standing. And it also requires that the tenant be present during the final inspection. So the process of the final inspection, should there be any kinds of issues determined, those can be addressed immediately with the landlord or the leasing agency. This simply returns the money that is rightfully owed to tenants in good standing in an expeditious manner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Back before the committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Robinson.
I move we PBI the bill.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to pass this bill by indefinitely. Ask the clerk to please open the roll for a vote. Thank you, Senator. That bill is PBI'd on a vote of 5-3. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next up, we have Senator Morrissey, Senate Bill 1127.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to present Senate Bill 1127. Mr. Chair, members, this bill simply establishes a work study among various stakeholders to see how we can help the most vulnerable. I'm talking about physically handicapped, intellectually challenged minors before they're evicted. This bill started out a much more robust bill in the Senate, and it was to require certain things that be done, landlords to send information and to actually assist them, and it morphed into a study. That study came out of the Senate 40-0, and it simply, and it was done at the request of the stakeholders, DSS, Department of Housing and Community Development, Southern Poverty Law Center. And the study itself, Mr. Chairman, will be conducted under the Department of Housing and Community Development with various stakeholders. And what is the goal? To lessen the number of people that are evicted who are among the most vulnerable. With that, that's it. And I'll answer any questions.
I don't see any questions from the committee. Is there anyone here in favor of the bill that wants to come forward? Is there anyone in opposition to the bill that wants to come forward? All right. Seeing none, it's before the committee.
Would this need to go to appropriations if we were to pass it, or is it?
I do not have a letter from appropriations.
All right. Move to report.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I have a substitute motion to gently lay the bill on the table.
It's been motion, second to report with a substitute motion to gently lay this bill on the table. Was there a second? There's a second on the motion to lay this bill on the table. I'd ask the members, please cast your vote. Senator, that bill is laid on a table on a 4-3 vote. Thank you. Senator Locke, you have Senate Bill 839.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There should be a substitute for this bill.
Can I get a motion on the substitute? All right, it's been motioned, seconded on the substitute. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the substitute's before us, Senator. Please tell us about your bill.
Okay, this bill comes out of a JLARC report from 2021 that adds to the powers and duties of the Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development the responsibility to conduct a comprehensive statewide housing needs assessment at least every 5 years, to develop a statewide housing plan and to update that plan every 5 years, and to provide annual updates to the General Assembly regarding meeting the goals of such plan, and to collect and publish certain zoning information collected from Virginia localities. And what the substitute does is I took out some pieces of my original bill and included some things from Delegate Ware's bill that also deals with housing. And I think Delegate Wampler, you had some changes that you wanted made, and I took those changes as well.
Thank you, Senator. It kept me from doing my own committee substitute. I appreciate that. Are there any questions from members of the committee at this time? All right, anyone here to speak in favor of Senate Bill 839, please come forward.
Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, Brian Koza with the Virginia Housing Alliance. This is I think, a transformative bill that could lay the foundation for a lot of really good planning and needs assessment in terms of housing and affordable housing across the Commonwealth, and we support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and I associate my remarks with those of Mr. Koziel, and we support the bill.
Sheila Herlihy with the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, similarly support the bill. Thank you for bringing it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Isabel McLean with Housing Opportunities Made Equal, and like those before me, we support the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Erin Corman with the Realtors, and we also support the bill.
Is there anyone in opposition to this bill? If you come forward, please. Seeing none, back to the committee. And Senator, if you'd like a final word, welcome to have it.
No, I think that this is needed based upon the JLARC report because of the shortage of at least 200,000 affordable houses, rental homes, and with this legislation, this would at the very least let us know what it is that we need to do as a legislature to deal with that shortage.
Thank you. Delegate Leftwich.
So I'm going to vote for it, but I haven't read it. I haven't seen what the substitute does, so just take that with a grain of salt, and as it works through the process, I'm going to look at it a little bit harder. But I didn't want to surprise you by voting for it now and then maybe not later is all. I don't like pulling punches like that.
I'm used to what you all do over here.
Okay. Well, I at least try to be upfront about it. So thank you, Senator.
Don't be surprised at what I do either.
Some chilly winds blowing around here despite the nice weather. All right,
Mr.
is there a motion?
I would move to report the substitute.
All right, it's been motion second to report the substitute. I'd ask the clerk to please open the roll for a vote. And that bill reports 8-0. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
I believe that completes subcommittees number 2's docket. So we'll get set up, and I think subcommittee number 1 is next.